Hi, I'm Mario Ariave with Utmost Performance. I'm currently reading a book called The Biggest Bluff, and it's a book about poker. This young lady, the author of the book, she decides to set out on a journey where she wants to ultimately make it to the World Series of Poker tournament, which is the biggest poker tournament in the world. But she knows nothing about poker. She is literally starting from the ground level, learning how to play this game. But she does enlist the help of a very famous poker player, a guy that had won the World Series of Poker a couple of times. So she's in good hands and she's being coached, but at the same time, very difficult journey. And she kind of walks you through that during the book. Well, where I currently am is this part in the book where she goes across the pond. She goes to Monaco to kind of up the level. She's been playing a lot of tournaments online, and then she went to Vegas for the first time. But this time, she's going to go out to Monaco, and she's going to begin playing against some of the heavier hitters. Level of poker is higher. The atmosphere is more stressful, like all of these kinds of things. So she goes out there and she spends some time playing, and she actually does pretty well. She gets her feet wet. She kind of gets, into the groove with some things. And she comes home and she's made some money. She's been able to cash out, what they call it, in some of these tournaments and bring some money back. And so she goes to check in with her coach and she says, hey, guess what? Like out there, this is what I did and this is how much money I came home with. And she couldn't really figure out why he wasn't necessarily all that thrilled with what she had done. He said, that's great. But he said, if I do the math correctly, you're cashing out. In other words, you're making money in about 50% of the tournaments that you're starting. And the industry standard for the, better performing, the higher performing poker players is cashing out 20 to 25% of the time. So she starts thinking to herself, I don't know what's wrong with this guy. Why is this guy, getting on my case about the fact that I'm cashing out more than the successful poker players that he knows about? Maybe even himself, who's won the World Series of Poker, a couple of times. So I'm cashing out more than you are, right? But he goes on to unpack this, and this is where I want to talk to us. He says, because you're cashing out more because you're setting your expectation to simply make it to the point where somebody cuts you a check for the tournament. In other words, it pays 20 deep. You'd be happy with 20th. It pays 15 deep. You'd be happy with 15th. It pays 50 deep. Same thing. You'd be happy with 50th. So yeah, you've done a good job getting to that point because that's what you were expecting. You were expecting to be in the money, and 50% of the time you were. But notice what it does. And he starts asking her questions. He says, once you get to the point where you know you're going to get cut a check, to guarantee, did you change the way that you played your hands? And she thinks back on it, and absolutely. I was more conservative. I changed my strategy. I wasn't as aggressive. I was just happy to be there. I wasn't looking past what the next thing could be. Making the top 10, and this is where he goes with this, making the final table. He says the reason why these guys are only doing 20 to 25% is because they're thinking about making the final table. Where if you make the final table, there's 8 or 9 or as low as 6 guys left. So you're looking to win. You're in contention. And that is drastically different than simply having the expectation of making the prize list and taking home some money. So she begins to think about that. And it changes her viewpoint. So what I want to talk about with us is, how does that play into our performances in our competitions? Are we having too low of an expectation for ourselves, which is in turn causing us to change our strategies once we meet that low expectation, which can be met oftentimes pretty quickly because by definition, it's a low expectation. Because you see, if we have those low expectations and that's all we can see, then we're going to perform to just get to that point. And then once we get there, we're going to settle. Once we get there, we're going to begin performing out of character. Once we get there, maybe our effort level oftentimes suffers. And we don't want that. Because what if we were to set our expectations higher? What we seek, we will find, right? And so if we set that expectation, not just to make the prize list, not just to get this thing here, but if we raise our expectation, then what we'll find is, notice, now let me give you the ugly truth on this. 50% making the prize list, 20 to 25% if you're looking to win the tournaments. That's a difference there. There's more failure associated with higher expectations. We've got to be okay with that. We've got to be okay with throwing away that 25 to 30% from the 50 to the 25. We've got to be okay with throwing away that margin for the sake of competing to win, for the sake of making that final table, proverbially, right? Because I'm asking us to go into our current scenarios. So where is it that we're not doing this? Think about you currently, and where is it that you're settling? So you've been successful just kind of getting these lower level expectations met, these goals that really don't stretch you and challenge you very much. But now I'm challenging you. Set that expectation higher. You're going to take a hit on the success rate. But you know what ends up happening? And I'll end with this from the example from poker. If you make the final table and you cash out there, you end up making more money with that 20 to 25% success rate than you would with the 50% success rate. You make more. You don't hit as often, but you make more. The same could be true for us. Not that we're seeking money, not that we're seeking trophies, medals, or anything like that. But if we can set our sights on competing to win, on this higher expectation over here, rather than these lower, they really don't fill us, they really don't satisfy us, we know they're easy, then what ends up happening is we get more satisfaction when we do hit up here versus getting lots of tiny hits down here. So I would challenge us to do that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that you're enjoying the content on this channel. If you are, check out some of the other videos that I've got that I think you'd like. Also, subscribe to the channel. Tell somebody else about the channel. If you don't have time to watch these on video all the time, that's all right. I've got audio format as well in the form of a podcast, so you can go check that out. Search Mayito Minutes and go ahead and grab those. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Till next time.